Well, how the hell are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing better. I was really sick for a couple of weeks. Well, I don't know if really sick is the right word. Like I never had fever or anything. I just had a lot of mucus and like coughing that was keeping me up um and the first week I put myself to bed and like was just trying to completely rest and like cleared my schedule and but then I was like, I really can't afford like there's things I need to be doing. And if this is going to drag on, I need to be able to do stuff. And so then I like start like, and even throughout that week, like there were some things that I was getting up and doing. And I was like, why is it I get up to do one thing and I'm so exhausted afterwards, right? And then it was interesting because I feel like that being sick was a blessing because I came to this realization that when I'm trying to get myself to like be productive, I put myself in a state of anxiety, right? My shoulders come up, I'm tense, I'm like rush, 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 rush. And because I've always believed, like it's been part of my identity, this whole like 0 to 100, that like I'm either going full speed ahead or I'm full stop, right? So that's why when I get sick, I'm just like, okay, time for full stop. But that's not practical. Like you have to sometimes be able to still do things while remaining calm and relaxed. And I've never really entertained the possibility of that being possible for me. So, and I think it was like a lot of little seeds have been planted over months of different coaching conversations where, we talk about presuppositions and things like that. And it like it occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, I could remain calm and still be productive. Maybe there's a way. Maybe I could learn how to do that. And maybe I could let go of the idea that that's like part of my identity that I can't do that? And it's like I always said that I'm always the hare and I can't be the tortoise. And it's like, why can't I be the tortoise? Maybe I can. What if I
Mhm.
could? What would that look like? Right? And so that's what I've been working on and practicing since I had that realization sometime last week that like trying to keep my breathing calmer, trying to um keep my heart like just keep my shoulders down, just stay relaxed as I go about doing things. And it's very interesting how it takes focus at this point because I'm not used to it. It's something new that I'm learning, but I'm finding that it is possible. It's just like it's developing a new habit
Mhm.
around productivity, and it's very interesting.
How's it going? Do you feel like you've been successful in the week since you've started instituting this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it helps that I had a coaching call where um we were practicing NLP techniques and I was the client and the person coaching me helped me to oh, what is that word? Why am I want to say ground, but it's not ground. Um, Anchor helped me to
Oh,
anchor calm. So the meditation was like going to a place and where I feel very calm. This you hear the sounds and see the sights and everything in that place, and then um you do something, whether it could be physical, it could not be physical. For me, I chose a breathing, like slow breathing. And so when I start slow breathing, I remember to like go to my happy, peaceful place in my mind, and that helps me to bring in that calm. Now, not, it's not just I'm supposed to, but like I want to do that as like maybe even just a 2 minute meditation every day to help
Uh-huh.
maintain that anchor. And that I haven't started doing yet, but need to do that if I wanted to keep working. But yeah, it's been going pretty well. Like I even went to like a program yesterday and it was interesting because I don't like big groups, but I just kind of stayed on the periphery and had one-on-one conversations with people. And so that worked. It was nice because it was an outdoor event. So like it didn't feel as claustrophobic and overwhelming as indoor events with a lot of people. Um, and obviously that's just me. That's a me thing. Not everybody feels that way about gatherings, but and I didn't feel exhausted afterwards. Like often after social events I feel really exhausted, but I was just yeah, I'm practicing remaining calm,
Well, that's
not letting myself
awesome.
get all yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's how I'm doing right now. How about you?
Doing pretty well, I would say. I mean, just kind of taking things one thing at a time. Even though it's been a lot, the to-do list is quite large, speaking of productivity. And, kind of like you saying, I'm very action oriented. I'm very, I've got this list of 20 things. That's a lot of things. We got to go. We got to get shit done.
Right,
And, I found myself trying to be very intentional about taking on those things. Like, dude, we're not going to do what old you used to do, and we're just going to like exhaust ourselves and then
right.
try and get all this stuff done in a 48-hour period, So trying to kind of like you said, okay, what are the important things that I really want to do first, foremost? Let's put those on a list. We're going to focus on those things. And then another thing that I have to be cognizant of for me is not quickly moving on from one thing to the next. Like, okay, we got this thing done. All right, now we have to pivot and immediately go to this next thing. We got to keep moving. To me, and based on my experience, creating that flow state, that state where you're able to get shit done, but then feel
Hmm.
really good about it, where you're just like, man, I feel like I'm killing it today. There's always windows of time where you feel like you can chill and you're almost like, okay, we're done with that thing. We're just going to sit on it just for a little bit. And then we're going to slowly move to that next thing when we're ready. We're not going to like push ourselves too hard. It's just going to be like, cool, got that done. Looks good. Take it all in, feel it through. And
Yes.
then, all right, what comes next?
Yes. You know, Robert and I talk about that in our workshop about taking a minute to celebrate when you've accomplished something. And it doesn't have to look like any one particular thing, you know? It could be congratulating yourself. It could be, getting up to get a snack or going outside and experiencing the sun for a minute. Or it could just be what you're talking about, sitting and just like taking it all in and like, okay, I did that. It looks good. All right.
Yeah.
And it is really important to take that minute because otherwise, when you just jump from one thing to the other, because that's those of us who are very action oriented like that, we tend to do that, like just jump from one thing to and it's like you're barely finished with one thing and your brain's going, okay, what's next? And you're not giving yourself credit for what you've already done. So then at the end of the day, even if you've got a whole bunch of stuff done, you might feel like, yeah, I killed it. But then part of your brain's like, yeah, but what actually did I do today? Because you didn't take a minute to really take it in and feel good about what you already got done. Your brain's already on to the next thing. And that is part of what creates the exhaustion because you're not like acknowledging the success you've already had, the productivity that's already been created. But it's like, yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon because when you keep going to next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, it's like your brain feels like it's never ending. And then your body starts feeling like it's never ending, like you're just pushing endlessly. But if you acknowledge what you've accomplished so far, you get like a sense, I mean, for lack of a better word, you get a sense of accomplishment, a sense of, all right, I did good. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how that little action can make such a big difference in terms of how you feel about yourself, about what you're getting done, and the extent to which you're exhausted or not at the end of it.
So based on what we just said there, and mainly what you just said, it's almost like a keystone part of productivity and really embracing in a positive way being a highly functioning individual is making sure that you take time to feel through each accomplishment, no matter how small or big.
Yes, yes, acknowledging yourself, acknowledging what you've done. And I think it also comes back to being present because taking a minute to be present to what, like, okay, so you were here and now you got this done. And now I'm going to take a minute to be present to what is now that I've gotten that done. It also keeps you from being in like a constant state of just looking in the future. I
Hmm.
think that's a big part of what is exhausting too, is like the lack of being present to the here and now. And there's something so like satisfying about just being present to what is, especially when you've gotten something accomplished. And if you allow yourself to miss out on that by just immediately jumping to the next thing, you're missing out.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah. I know when the to-do list gets too long and almost becomes a little bit of a burden and very overwhelming, it's easy to go that way of, well, I just got to get stuff done, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and there's no rest, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, it creates a little space, a little bit of rest and acknowledgement of that you already have accomplished something, which also gives you more energy to accomplish the next thing. Because you're like, okay, I got something done. This is great. And then you're
Yeah.
like, now what's next? You know, as opposed to just like almost disregarding it, right? It's almost like your internal boss, right? Like if you have a boss that's like never acknowledges your like what you've done for the job, and they're just like, okay, now to go do this. And then you come and you're like, here it is. Okay, now go do this. And they never were like looked at it and said, okay, good job, well done. Now now go do this, right? That's what you're doing for yourself. You're saying, let me look at this for a minute. Let me acknowledge it and go, okay, good, well done.
Yeah.
And it makes such a big difference in terms of how we feel about the work that we're doing. If we do that for ourselves instead of just, it's almost like disregarding what we just got accomplished and just on to the next thing, on to the next thing, as if none of it actually mattered. So, how do you maintain your enthusiasm to keep doing the next thing if all the work you already put in didn't matter enough to actually like take a minute and acknowledge it, right? That's how
That's a
you
very
create
good point.
burnout. Yeah.
Well, and to tie that into what I do, right? People are unfulfilled with their job, and they're either looking at making a change or they are dead set on making a change. Sometimes the unfulfillment really is a result of just a perspective shift, just like you said. You know,
Hmm.
if that boss is, okay, great, you're done with that. I've got 16 other things. I can pile them on your desk immediately. Go ahead and get on those whenever you're ready.
Right,
That's going to lead to that unfulfilling job of just feeling like the cog in that machine.
right. And all we need as human beings is a little acknowledgement. We need to feel valued, and that's something we can even do for ourselves.
Hmm. I mean, would you say not only is it something we can do for ourselves, I would almost say it's something we have to do for ourselves if we're going to be successful over the marathon that we call life.
Yeah, I would say that as well. And I would say especially if you're an entrepreneur. Like I don't see how you could be a successful entrepreneur if you don't do that for yourself, because you're going to burn out too fast.
Hmm. Definitely, yeah.
I mean, I
I
know I would. Like everybody's brain works a little differently, but I think that's for most people, I think that would be essential, is taking that minute, acknowledging how far you've come or the task you've just completed. And just, I mean, it might sound corny, but it's like that couple seconds of like telling yourself, well done, it makes a big difference. And if you do have a boss, like if the task is like at work and you do have a boss who's doing that to you, I would encourage you to do it for yourself. Like who's just like jump to the next thing and not acknowledging. Like before you go take it to your boss, I would encourage you to just like take a minute, look at it and appreciate the hard work you've done and tell yourself, well done. Good job.
Mhm.
Because if somebody else isn't going to do that for you, you're not going to change them. You might be able to have a conversation with them and ask them to do that for you, but that may or may not work. But you can control yourself. You can change how you're doing things and what your habit is.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've gotten in the practice of doing as an entrepreneur and even in my previous corporate jobs is, you know, having like a high level bulleted list of what accomplishments I did that day. And, the way it started out was whether it was monthly or weekly or quarterly, we needed to provide the boss with an update of this is what we did this quarter, this month, this week, so that we could pass on the word to leadership and whatnot. But what it ultimately became for me over the years was kind of a gauge of, you know, showing yourself what you did that day, that week, that month, that quarter, and seeing, oh man, I really did do a lot. And,
Mhm.
in certain seasons or time windows, I was able to see, on my bulleted list, like, I don't know what that number is because it would frequently change. Sometimes it was like, well, geez, I got 3 things done that day. That's a win given the workload that I currently have. And sometimes it was, geez, my bulleted list was like 6 or 7 things today. Like I was really on it. Or maybe it was just the result of smaller tasks and I was able to really get out there and get things done. But celebrating those things and finding all the value in what you did accomplish, I think is huge.
Right. It's kind of like the difference between running on a hamster wheel or running from point A to point B. When you run from point A to point B, there's a sense of accomplishment because you got to the end point. And even if you're running on a treadmill, if you're gauging how many miles you've run or whatever, like acknowledging I've done this much, right? As opposed to on, let's say, a hamster wheel that's not gauging anything, it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Like, of course you're going to get burnt out.
Yep,
That acknowledgement is everything.
yep, absolutely.
So, and then what's really interesting that Robert talks about is even acknowledging yourself for taking rest when you need it, right? And he talks about the distinction between rest and procrastination. And he describes it, he's like, if you get up to go to the bathroom and you end up watching 3 episodes of something on Netflix or scrolling on your phone for an hour, that's procrastination, right? But if you're like, I feel drained, I need to take a break, I'm gonna watch 3 things on Netflix and then get back to work, that's rest. It's really
Mhm.
about like your intentionality of it and acknowledging, noticing, are you avoiding some task or are you actually like tired and need a break? And like being honest with yourself about that. Because if you are tired and need a break, it's really counterproductive to tell yourself that you're procrastinating or beat yourself up about it. It kind of counteracts the benefit of the break, right? But if you acknowledge, okay, I'm resting, I need to rest right now. I'm going to rest from this time to this time and then I'll get back to work. And you do that, then you actually are taking a rest. And you're not the whole time going, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and like mentally exhausting yourself while you're supposed to be resting,
Mhm.
you know? And so acknowledging when you need rest and taking that rest and then being like, good on you, you're taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh, you probably should have been doing this, this, and this, and this. Like,
And
again, it makes all the difference, just the mindset.
in the past, I've been in situations where I've sold myself short. It's like, okay, I did this, and that's great, but I still have a ton of stuff to do. And then you go and maybe you're having a phone conversation or whatever with a friend, and it's like, hey, just catching up, how the last few months been doing? What have you been doing? That kind of thing. And then you kind of run through the that list of, well, I did this, I got that done. This was challenging, but I got it done. And sometimes that conversation can reset you in terms of showing yourself, holy shit, like I've done some pretty big stuff here. And here I am caught up in what I still have to do. And it was almost like that conversation was a blessing because it recentered, where you thought you were.
Yeah, it's really funny because my business coach, when many times, like not every week, but when I meet with her quite often, she's like, so how was the week? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm all over the place. I don't know what I got done. I feel like I probably didn't get nearly what I should have got done. And then like throughout the conversation, it comes up that like I had all these big wins that I just was discounting, forgetting about. And then she's like, you're so funny. You get on this call every time and you're like, I didn't do anything. And then I find out you did 10 amazing things over the past week. Like you actually got a lot done, but you were just like not giving yourself credit for it. So yeah, those calls, I mean that's another way that like an accountability partner can help you too. To like sit down and actually, okay, what did I get accomplished this past week? Because we don't take sufficient time to make a mental note of the wins. We just jump on to the next thing. And then by the end of the week, we're like, I probably didn't get, I feel like I didn't get anything done. But you talk through it and you're like, oh, yeah, but I did do this. Oh, yeah. And then there was that. And like all of it, you're minimizing all of it until it all gets laid out in front of you in a conversation. And you're like, oh, wow, actually, yeah, I got a lot done this week, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I know one of the issues that I used to struggle with is you kind of it's hard to be completely without expectation, right? Because we all have assumptions that we make when we get into something or we're taking something on, like, oh, this should take 2 hours, this should take 4 hours, this should take
Hmm.
3 days, whatever. And in the past, I know I've taken on some larger projects, and then I get at the end and I'm like, God, I should be done by now. And then it takes, however much longer. And it's like, yeah, I'm done, but geez, I should have been done 3 weeks ago. And then you just wrote off the entire project that you just did. And so I
Just
would get done.
because, yeah,
I would get done with these larger projects that it's like not just anybody can take that on and do it, let alone, you know, do it in the time window, not being an expert in that thing. And you got through it and did a pretty bang up job. And then you just wrote it off in the end.
just because you didn't meet the originally anticipated timeline,
Yeah.
which might have been completely, oh, what's the word? Like wishful thinking. You know what I mean? Like something that really does take a week. You're like, I'm gonna get this done in 2 days. And it's like it's not at all practical. And then you get it done in a week, and then you're like, oh, it should have only taken me 2 days. It's like,
And
come on, stop doing that to yourself.
it's true. I mean, that's one way to crush a positive mindset completely. And I used to be very guilty of that. And, especially these days, I'm very cognizant of making sure that I don't do that
Hmm.
because you can take a really big, uh, grand project that you just took on and it's like you did great and make it mean nothing.
Right. And it's interesting. I've been talking with several people about this lately, and it started with conversation with Robert again. Um, he's been really helpful to me lately, like his mindset tools. And he he just said this one thing to me once, and I'm like, it really stuck with me. I said something mean to myself on a call with him, and he was like, "Don't talk to my friend like that." You know? And I'm like, I'm somebody's friend. Somebody cares about me and wouldn't want someone to be mean to me. So maybe I shouldn't be mean to me, you know? And in that kind of light, like the concept of being kind to ourselves, I think we've been raised and like in this society somehow we've been trained to think that beating ourselves up is a way to like create better productivity. And I've realized recently it's actually the opposite is true. Because when you give yourself a hard time, it lowers your energy level, it makes you believe in yourself less, and then you feel less motivated and you're more likely to procrastinate. Whereas if you cut yourself a break and give yourself mad credit for every little thing you do, it starts to build you up and make you feel like you're capable. And you start going, huh, maybe I could take on more. Maybe I could do this big thing that you know, that I was previously afraid to do. But if you're like, ah, same thing, it's like, I did this big thing, but it took a whole week and it should have only taken 2 days. Like, no, be like, what a great job I just did, you know? And even when, like, Robert talks about even when you take something off your to-do list because you acknowledge that it's less important than some of the other things and it's just not going to get done. And that's okay. That we should even celebrate that we cleaned up our to-do list and we acknowledged that this is not a priority and took it off our plate. Like that's an accomplishment too. And even taking a day to rest if you really had a hard week, that's an accomplishment because that day of rest is going to make the next week possible. And if you didn't give that to yourself, you're putting yourself behind. But like, let's say you need that day of rest, you're taking that day of rest, but the whole day you're giving yourself a hard time about it because I should be out mowing the lawn, I should be doing this, or I should, And it's like, no, give yourself kudos for acknowledging when you need to rest and resting.
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's amazing what a difference it makes. But it is very counterintuitive to the way we've been trained.
And, I think there's a lot of reasons why that's the state that we live in this first world that we live in. Um, I think social media can push that, because not very many people share their lows. The vast
True.
majority of people share their highs, so that's all we see in short clips. So we
Right.
celebrate all these wins that everybody else did in very quick amounts of time. And then I think that carries over, and it's almost like it creates this psychological effect of, well, not only do I have to be able to do it quickly, but I have to be doing volume in terms of having wins,
Mm,
you know?
yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting because it's so unrealistic what we see on, like on Instagram or TikTok. Like it's these little clips that make it look like somebody is like having this really big life and they're doing all these things. But sometimes it's reposts of something they did a year ago. Sometimes it's, you know what I mean? Like you don't it's not what it looks like. Like I know people personally who post all this stuff on Instagram and it looks like they're doing all these things. And yeah, sometimes they're having a busy month or something and they're traveling and sometimes meanwhile they're like sitting at home sleeping in and but but because they did some things last week, they have all this stuff and the way they post it, it looks like they're, world travelers doing all these great things and it's like and half of them are reposts most of the time, and
Yeah.
it's like but
And
it gives us this false sense of reality.
yeah, because, I've been thinking about this the last 2 days, just how, especially as an entrepreneur, just how innovative the internet is, social media is. It's this extremely powerful tool if you use it in the right way. AI, it can add so much to your life. It can make so many aspects of your life easier. But just like anything else that's really, really great, there's that shadow side of it. And that shadow side is, what creates the negative aspects of, okay, well, now, in our world, if we can't fit our message into a 90-second message, the world probably isn't going to take to it, you know?
Yeah, because our
And if we
attention
don't
span is
show,
like
and if we don't show those wins in volume, like you were just saying, it's like, yeah, yeah, but he's not doing that much over there. Whatever he's doing, it's like, yeah, he just had that one win. So I'm not really interested in that message. So there's that shadow side, but the internet and social media today, if you look at it in a certain type of way, it's extremely innovative and it allows you so much if you look at the positives.
yeah, but you have to look at it realistically is the thing and like realize that this is not the whole picture. This is part of the picture. And then be realistic and kind with yourself. And honestly, I think we should normalize posting that I got a good day of rest and good on me. Like I had a long week. I took today to rest. I'm so proud of myself. Like, through this conversation, I'm like, yeah, I need to start posting those kind of things because I want to normalize that. And that's why it's important. I feel like one of the most powerful things on the internet today is people being vulnerable and sharing their struggles because that's something that is making other people feel less alone, feeling like, oh, somebody gets me. I, I can relate to them, which means if I knew them in real life, they'd be able to relate to me. It really helps you feel less alone and makes you feel understood. And that is the most valuable thing because we're all human. None
Mhm.
of us are perfect. And we have these ridiculous expectations of ourselves to be perfect. And the extent to which we can remind other people, I'm not perfect either. Like, yes, I'm out here coaching and I'm having a lot of deep realizations and stuff, but those realizations start with taking a hard, honest look at yourself and acknowledging something uh, that maybe isn't serving you, a habit that you're in, or a belief that you're holding. That's where it starts. Then you have a breakthrough once you look at that. But it doesn't, breakthroughs don't come from constantly winning. They come from failing, they come from struggling, and they come from taking long, hard looks at yourself and being honest.
Absolutely, yes.
And
Um,
that shit is ugly and it's not fun. It's not pretty until you get to the other side of it. Once you realize what can come out of it, then it becomes fun. Like, I'm not scared to look at the messy parts of myself anymore because I know what's on the other side of that, the freedom that it creates. But if you don't know that yet, man, is it scary.
oh, 100%. And, for me, in what led up to my pivot point or my dark night of the souls, I mean, the thought of going through that struggle, like, I don't think I would have listened at that time. And then I hit that low point, that dark night of the souls, and it forced my hand in pivoting because at that point, that cliche line, staying the same was scarier than going through the darkness and changing.
Yes.
But
Yes, it gets to that point.
post transformation, I totally agree with you. Like scary stuff, great, let's step through it. Let's do it, you know, because we done did this before and it created a beast. And so we've seen the fruits. I want more fruit.
Right, right. It's like walking through dark, scary tunnels. When you've seen how bright the light is on the other side, when you've seen how beautiful the scenery is, when you get to the other side, you see another tunnel coming up and you're like, yeah, let's go through it. But if you haven't seen that yet and you're just at the beginning of your first tunnel, so to speak, although I don't really think anybody is. I do think everybody's gone through some small tunnels, right? It's those bigger ones that sometimes get real scary. But it's like each time you go through one, you can then be reminded of the beauty on the other side, the freedom on the other side. And if you stay in community with other people that are doing that work as well, you get constantly reminded. And that's why it's so valuable and so important to stay in those communities, stay in communication with those people that are also doing that work.
Yeah,
So
and
that
and
when
I
you come
would
up against your next tunnel, you don't, somebody's there to be like, remember, it's okay. You got this.
and I wouldn't wish like a life forcing your hand in a pivot or a dark night of the soul on anybody not even my enemies, because it's so hard and you have to hit a low and then you have to dig your way out of it just to get back to surface and then you have to build from there and it's exhausting and it's not something you do overnight. You have to just basically rebuild. I mean, for me personally, I knew my job was unfulfilling for a number of years, but then I waited till my personal life went to shit too. And then, I've never been that disappointed in myself ever because for the first time in my life, it wasn't like, oh, you did this one thing wrong. That's why you messed up. It was like being in a warehouse full of truth and then the lights came on. Except I didn't know I was in a warehouse and I didn't know there was piles and piles of truth surrounding me. And then it
Hard
was like,
truth.
you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, this needs to change. You thought you were doing this right. Guess what? You're not. That needs to change too. And then it was like, okay, I'm back at that laundry list, that overwhelming laundry list. Where do
And
I
then it's
even
like,
start?
yes, where do you start? And again, you need help. And that's the part that I think, again, I think we've been trained to think that we should be able to do things on our own. And yes, the motivation has to come from within. But once you're motivated to make that change, you've got to like grab hold of the hand of somebody who can walk through it with you a little bit. And it's not like one person is going to be there for the whole process. You might have one person that sits with you for one conversation about one part of that truth, somebody else that, encourages you through another part of it. But that's why we need community.
Well, and that's why we need coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, can you change your life on your own without a coach? For the most part, yes. It's
But
going to
it's
be a
going to be
lot
a
harder.
lot
It's going
harder.
to take a lot longer. You're going to have to weed through all that stuff that doesn't work, all that fluff. And if I was to give you a time frame on like a find your purpose mission by yourself, I would say 2 to 4 years, depending on how resistant you are and how active you are in pursuing that effort. Like, do you really want to spend 2 to 4 years on that kind of a pivot? Like, that's a large effort, a lot of energy, a lot of hours. And then each time you find those things that don't work, it's like, well, shit, what do I do next? Like, that didn't
Right.
work.
Right.
And,
Whereas
and
with a good coach, you might be able to get through the same stuff in 6 months.
oh, 100%. Yeah. 6 to 12 months, you've completely transformed your life. I mean, one of the things I offer clients is a 1 year, you want to go full on find your purpose. We can do that. 1 year package. You give me 1 year, I'll give you the rest of your life, however you see it.
Excuse me. I am still fighting this cold. Yeah, it it is amazing what a difference good coaching can make. And what I'm finding, because I've been working with a lot of different coaches, I'm finding that depending on what you need or what you're looking for, different coaching styles might be helpful in this way versus that way. Um, like I have a business coach right now, and our conversations are more practical and like, okay, what are you doing for your business? What's stopping you? What are you afraid of letting go of that's keeping you from moving forward? What's the next step? Those kind of things. Then I have another coach who's working with me on more personal stuff. And she does like her style is more, she does guided meditations and and creative writing and stuff like that. Um, and like exercises during the coaching. And the other day, I had a session with her, and I think this actually helped to open up that possibility of being the tortoise instead of the hare, that like maybe I could. It was loosely related. So I was doing this thing to well, okay. I thought it was part of my identity because as far back as I can remember, since I was a child, I have always believed that I had to be the best at everything. Like not just one thing, I had to be the best at everything. Like if I chose to do something, I had to be the best at it. So I've always been like really competitive and that kind of thing. And or I had to be really extra. I had to stand out in some way, right? And so I've always been really proud of being extra. And it was like, why? Where did that start? Right? Because I can tell that or like through our conversation, I could tell that that was holding me back in some ways. Like because like I won't take something on if I don't think I can be the best at it or that kind of thing. And so again, it's like this all or nothing. And so she asked me like when did this start? And I was like, well, I've always been like that. Like I remember being like that since I was a kid. And then so like I don't know where it started. I just think it's part of who I am, right? So we did a guided meditation and she took me back to talk to my younger self. And it started with just like asking her, "Hey, how you doing?" And I went back, and this wasn't something she told me to do, but just somehow instinctively I went back and talked to a version of myself that was before I remember being like that. Um, and not that I like have any vivid memory of ever not being like that, right? But I just went to a younger version of myself and just asked her like, "Hey, how's your day? What's going on? What are you doing?" And then asked her, "Do you know why we're like this? Why do we need to do this and be like this?" And it came out that it was out of my loneliness growing up, that I felt like I had to stand out so that somebody might notice me and want to be my friend. I needed to be noticed, I needed to be seen and and heard. And I came to believe that the maybe the way to do that would be to be the best at things so I'd be admired or extra so that I would stand out. And then it was funny, then I was supposed to tell my younger self something to like reassure her. And because I was very lonely growing up. And I told her, I was like, don't worry. Someday you'll have so many people in your life who love you that you'll wish that they would leave you alone. They'd go away and leave you alone.
Wow.
And so having that guided meditation with my coach opened up a whole new world for me. I was like, oh, I'm not that little girl anymore. I'm not lonely anymore. So there is absolutely, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I have my community, I have my people. So why would I need to be the best at things or extra to get attention? I already have more attention than I want, in a
Hmm.
sense, right? And that just like now I'm free to be somebody that I never thought I could be because I just thought it was part of who I was.
100%. I mean, to wrap that up into like a digestible ball of whatever, right? A lot of us can have these things going on right now within the last couple of years, whatever it may be. And then sometimes you have a situation where, well, where did that thing come from? Oh gosh, well, it came from when I was a little kid. So it becomes this inner child wound that progressed into where you're at now, where you're at in the last couple of years. Oh my God, this has been going on a lot longer than I thought. This has been decades in the making. And so doing that inner child work to figure out how early did this come along, it opens up a completely new world. And
Yeah.
then you also see, how many things is that one thing connected to? Because gosh, now that I've digested what this thing came from an inner child thing, oh, it's connected here, here, here. Holy, it's everywhere. It's weeded into everything.
And sometimes you don't even necessarily see all the places that it's connected. But when you go into that area, like this thing with like, oh, I need to be able to be productive and still remain calm and not get my heart rate up and my breathing up and like get tense, right? Like I need to be able to be productive without like cortisol and adrenaline constantly, you know? And so, how do I do that? Can I do that? And I didn't even really think about how that was actually connected. But the once I was like, huh, maybe I could be the tortoise and stay and be like steady, slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. And at some point in there, I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I would have been able to consider this as a possibility for myself if I had still been seeing myself as that person that has to be the best and extra. Because the hair is extra. The hair is, running at top speed and then going to sleep for a little while. It's like the all or nothing energy. And that was like a big part of what that extra was for me. And
Hmm.
now it's like, huh, I could still be me and not be extra, not be all or nothing, remain calm and move forward. And so it was like after the fact, after the breakthrough, I realized it was connected. Like I would have never been open to that breakthrough had I not had the previous one. So these things, they all it like each breakthrough supports the next one. It builds on itself.
Well, and I think because I know I've had that same struggle. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to be the best at it. But when you think about being the best at something, anything really, what can tend to come with that is a level of fame. You look at these Hollywood celebrities and okay, Beyonce is a musician and whatever else she does, but then you have all the tabloids judging her in every aspect of her life. Well, she's at a point where everybody's put her on a pedestal and she has to be perfect in every aspect of her life. Well, does she? I mean, she's really just a musician and however else you want to label her,
Performer, yeah,
but she is not everything. So
right,
you have to, if you're going to rise to the top, you have to be okay with some level of fame and being put on that pedestal. Can you weather that storm of, well, geez, Padmavati's not operating at an A plus level like she was last year. What's going on with her? Is there something happening? Is she falling apart? Is this the beginning of a breakdown? Oh my God, she lost it. Are you okay with
right.
that level of fame?
Well, and that is interesting because that connects to being secure in yourself, which I think, doing that internal work helps you to get more secure with yourself. You need to know your values. You need to know what you stand for. And so if somebody points out a so-called weakness, which I mean, obviously we all have weakness. None of us are perfect. We're human. That you could be like, yeah, yeah, I'm human. Big surprise. Newsflash, I'm human. Okay, moving on. Like, and not have it ruffle you. And also realizing that when people are critical of one another in that kind of way, it's more to do about them than it is to do about the person that they're criticizing.
Hmm.
It's their insecurities coming up and their need to feel better than somebody else, and therefore they got to put you down. That's like, okay, well, I wish you well. I'm okay. I
Yep.
don't need your approval. And that it does, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. But the more internal work you do, the more equipped you are to handle all kinds of things that got thrown your way. And that's not to say that you're not going to have lows. It's not to say that you're not going to have breakdowns, but you have the tools to get through those things, perhaps a little easier than someone who doesn't have those tools. You have the community, the support to get through those things a little easier.
So, I mean, if you were to kind of sum up what we've talked about here, I mean, what's coming to mind for me, we ended up talking about productivity, how it can show up in your life, potential pitfalls. We ended up tying that to a lack of fulfillment, whether that be in your career, in your life, otherwise. And, we talked about high functioning individuals largely, um, and how they always want to do more and more and more, and how that can be paced. We've talked about, uh, when you do achieve a high functioning status where you can maintain it and sustain it, that could potentially bring a level of fame that maybe you didn't know you were asking for as a part of that potential outfall. I mean,
Right.
how would you summarize our conversation?
I would say, I think I would focus on where to begin. And I would say begin by practicing self-kindness. Practice self-kindness, acknowledge your wins, acknowledge what you learn from failures, because that's a win too. And start building a community by getting a coach, by associating yourself with other people that are doing the work you want to do. And by work, that could be like people in, in a particular field, but I'm also talking about like internal work. Find a couple friends, even one friend that's also trying to do internal work. Somebody that where you can support one another. So it's like build that positive community that's going to support you. Be kind to yourself and acknowledge yourself. That's how I would sum it up.
That's awesome. Well
So not
done.
only is that where to start, but that's like how to keep yourself going too.
Yeah. Yeah, that and those three things, I mean, you start doing those things, I think anybody's going to see a marked improvement and they're going to elevate themselves.
Yep. Yep. And those things can be done in a lot of different ways. Get creative about it. Have fun with it.
100%. Well,
That was a productive conversation. That's
yeah.
great.
No, and it actually had flow to it and we didn't get too crazy on like 25 different things.
Yeah, no, it was great. I'm gonna stop recording now. See you next time.